This week, we are mostly slabbing Terry Alderton's radio show, BBC Radio 4 show, called More Crazy Now, and it's episode 4 of 4, and the episode title, A Lot of Thoughts. Right, here we go. Do not be fooled. It is me. Well, it's the Comedy Slab League, and I'm Adrian Lacey, and my friend in the north. Could you introduce yourself, Pat?
Of course I can. I'm Shane O'Connor.
That was lousy for both of us.
That was, wasn't it? Isn't it? It's weird though. Actually, can we just qualify why we do this?
Yes.
We talk for like way too long before we start recording, and we always do it in a different accent to our own, don't we?
It's bizarre, but you started it. But our good friends and listeners will work out eventually. We've got 3 audio clips to play you from a show we're slabbing this week. It's a radio show by the stand-up comedian Terry Alderton. And when you hear clip number 1, it'll all fall into place, will it not?
It's kind of invaded our psyche, innit? Like, you know.
I didn't want to leave it there because I want to make the most of it. It's terrible, isn't it? I'm ashamed.
It's normally Irish, isn't it? We do before the start of the recording. It's weird.
I think we were somewhere in the Irish Sea with that. Anyway, it was a blend from more than one country, as it says on olive oil bottles.
I was thinking whiskey, but there you go.
Well, yeah. Yes. So this is an interesting one on at least 2 levels, probably multiple levels. I apologise in advance that due to a clerical error and a miscalculation on my part, the show we're going to slab as we speak for the next 2 hours is actually going to be available on BBC Sounds on the app because it's a BBC radio show. But by the time we manage to get this show to you, dear listener, it will not be available. Leak.
It makes me so angry. What's the point of doing that?
Are you angry with me?
No, I'm never angry with you, darling.
Never.
What's the
steady?
What's the point of, like, you know, why can't they? And all right, it might be because they've got to pay a bit more. We'll close down one of the other services overseas that is nothing to do with the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah. Well, what you'll find it's like road traffic, isn't it? Everyone wants fewer cars on the road until you actually suggest that would include their car.
No, I don't think it is. I think if you said, "Oh, we're going to get rid of some of the services overseas, the World Service," I don't know why I'm paying a licence fee for that. You know, for the Peshawari service or whatever. I think, why am I paying for that? I'll pay for Peshawari Naam, but that's it.
Well, that's a somewhat blinkered view, if I may say
so.
No,
it's not. It's the British Broadcasting Corporation. It's not. You know, we haven't got an empire anymore. It's no longer their job to peddle their propaganda or help.
Did you say piddle their propaganda?
Piddle their propaganda up the wall.
Up the wall leak.
Or help developing nations or whatever it is they think they're doing. Just do what you're supposed to do. It's like, you know, when they had a website, it all got out of control. Do what you... Oh, you see, you're starting me off now. All I'm saying is...
I didn't mean to. You started yourself off. It's the Rolex thing, self-winding.
How much do you reckon it would cost? Could we have a whip round and pay them to put it back? I mean, it's just...
I'll whip you around. Really.
Yeah.
But the thing is, okay, you can say, right, the BBC could be on a Netflix model where everything stays up ad infinitum. But you're quite right. There is a cost to that. And, okay, you've suggested sacrificing World Service. Well, I should explain to new listeners here, and it's lovely to have you along. I hope you'll be persuaded in the next few minutes, if not the next half hour or so, to be a subscriber to Comedy Slab. Because, you know, we go beyond the slab, don't we, as we've already demonstrated. We get
beyond the fringe.
Beyond the fridge.
Beyond common decency.
As I speak, well, each to their own. I'm trying to keep it family friendly, but we'll see. Each week is a challenge, especially when we get the edgier comedies. But the point is, you won't necessarily know if you've just joined the show that I do some work for the BBC as a freelance. So Shane backs me up against a wall, and I feel I have to defend Auntie, which is the nickname, of course, for the Beam Sieben. I don't have to, actually. They're not paying me. I'm off duty now. But I do at least want to put the counter argument, which is World Service is very cheap for a bit of soft power that goes around the world. I mean, where was I hearing the other day? Oh, I think it was a BBC radio show, actually, the media show, which naturally enough I find quite an interesting topic, being a media. I can't decide whether to say whore or bore. Let's go with bore, it's slightly family friendly. So being a media bore, no, that's a good show to dip into. And they had an item, very interesting one, on how other nations have their own soft power. You know, France has for some years had France 24, which is their rolling news, in English. There's a reason they're doing it, isn't it? It's not just for fun, or it's not an act of charity.
Yeah, it's like Russia Today, isn't it? Is, you know, and you kind of think, well, which is fine if you were not paying for it. I mean, that's the difference.
But we pay anyway, don't we? If it wasn't the license fee, it would be on taxation. Who pays for the government? Who pays for public services?
Well, no, you'd pay it through advertising, wouldn't you? Rather than, I think the advertising model is much more.
Yeah, but sorry, we're talking about radio, or I'm thinking of radio here, World Service Radio, as opposed to BBC World TV. TV, yes, there is an advertising established model. Radio, I don't know. It's tighter margins, isn't it?
Speaking, well, you know, they got World Service TV, and then they've got News 24, and you think, whatever they call it this week, and you think you could merge both of those, and if you wanted to do that, then you send that round the world, and you know, and you'd incorporate programs. It's typical socialist model. It's like if you're spending somebody else's money, you don't care how it's spent. That's the bottom line with all of that. However, having said that, I would be as angry if it was, and I do get as angry. Although it is part public funded as well, isn't it? I was going to say Channel 4 is the same, and you kind of think, oh great, they've got this on, and then they haven't got half the episodes on, and you think, what? You know,
I thought Channel 4 was an exception there. Sorry, I thought the model on Channel 4 was on the Channel 4 All 4 app that
no,
and certainly we've slabbed shows that are up in perpetuity. I thought, but obviously not.
Well, not all of that. And you look at it, and it lulls you into a false sense of security. And you think, oh great, forget what it was I was trying to watch the other day, and I thought, oh brilliant, and then I clicked on it, and then got none of the episodes. I thought, what if you put it up there, then you teasers?
Well, at least you can laugh about it. But the point is, the boot's on the other foot. If you were the producer, if they said, oh, heaven forfend, let's make a Channel 4 TV version of the Comedy Slab, and by the way, we're open to discussions, guys, aren't we? We'll be at Horseferry Road before you can say Channel 4.
I'll bring my own makeup.
Yeah, tongues hanging out, wallets open.
Yeah, but you have such a thing as a buyout, don't you? I mean, that's the whole point. Is that it's, you know, whoever's running the contracts, you kind of think, what are you doing?
Or you might actually say, no, we want to give you the window of, in the case of the BBC, going back to that, it's 30 days conventionally on iPlayer or BBC Sounds for Radio, and Channel 4. We've gathered, well, some of them are in perpetuity, some obviously not so. But the point is, we might want to sell Comedy Slab around the world, because we know there's a hungry audience out there in sub-Saharan Africa for our bon mot and hilarious asides. And we might not want to be tied into a buyout. So it's everything on its merits, isn't it? And of course, there are some very powerful so-called independent production companies. They don't feel so independent in a way. I mean, they seem like they're wagging the dog sometimes.
Sell it around the world. I'd be happy if we could get a $5 for it down the pub, to be honest with you. But
I'd be happy if your wife listened. But you know, from what I hear, she's watching Coronation Street.
She said she can't stand to listen to me in real life, and there's no way she's going to listen to a recording. Is there? Come on, behave yourself. Anyway,
okay.
Sorry, right. I dragged you off the beaten track there, didn't I? And
well, we like a little sort of a circumlocution. Get you in your long words, or is it electrocution? Before we start talking about the show in question,
this is your. I sorry to interrupt you there. It's your choice, and so that means that you're the clipperati this week. You've clipped off the bits for us. Have you got anything?
Yes. Well, let's lead into our first clip, because I could take ages, as I usually do, to explain something that can actually be explained in a minute's clip to give you a flavour. But I will just set the scene to say that, or repeat where we came in. Terry Alderton is a stand-up comic. I've only, to my shame, just come across him. I don't ever pretend to be the number one authority on all comedy. Happily, we have a luxury of choice, I would say, in comedies. And if there's one thing I've learned from working on the Comedy Slab for the last 6+ months, is I think we're in a golden age of comedy. I think absolutely fantastic. We've got so much to choose from each week. And we haven't had to repeat a single show, have we, in 6 months? And it doesn't look like we will for some time to come. What I like about Terry is it's a manic style of comedy. This one is, I think, it's closest of the 3 clips to just a straightforward or relatively straightforward comedy sketch. So enjoy it for what it is, and it needs no further introduction.
You join us inside the Geordie garage. The male Geordie at this moment in time is working on an old automobile, and the female Geordie is about to deliver a lovely cup of tea.
Can you not turn them down?
What did you say?
Megan, the mechanics, can you not turn them down?
All right.
That's better. Now there you go, Pet, a nice cup of tea. Well, take it.
I can't take it. I'm at a critical point of this operation.
Well, there's gratitude.
Just put it on the roof, man.
Oh, I put it on the roof, all right. Just wish the sunroof was open.
Oh, that's useful, isn't it? Now, put your hand under here, and if anything falls, make sure you catch it.
Oh, listen, I know this is an old car and all, but isn't it naughty winding back the mileage?
No, Pet. It's giving the car back some, if you like, youthfulness. Right, I'm pulling it out. Here it comes.
I don't like doing this. Is naughty.
And there we go. One speedo.
There's something stuck on it.
What's stuck on it?
With writing?
Writing?
Aye, and it says, "Oh no, not again."
And the I don't know whether people will pick this up. You were saying it's a 14-minute show, but that's the nearest that you get to a conventional sketch show, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. That I picked that. It's a good way in, actually, but it is. I pick the clips in chronological order, which is what we normally do. So anyone lulled into a full sense of security thinking, right, finally I'm listening to a sketch show, you're going to probably be slightly disappointed or confused, more likely, with the rest of the show. But I've got to know, now that we've heard that, it must be time for you to lay your cards on the table. Did you have time for this show, albeit 14 minutes, or is it not your cup of tea, leak?
Well, I don't know whether I should thank you or I should curse you, really, because you, prior to I got to tell you, everyone listening, that he's been prodding at me all week, sending me messages about other things. And then
can't help it. I'm a born
can't help
prodder.
it. I'm a natural born prodder. And then sending me, and then kind of like little, Terry Alderton, how's that going? Kind of. So I'd get like,
and you have been tight-lipped, haven't you, to a fault?
I've been like this. I've been pretty tight-lipped.
You don't see many of those.
He'd send me a note. Going, how did the hemorrhoid surgery go? And did you like Terry Alderton? And I said, well, I preferred the hemorrhoid surgery, to be quite honest. No.
That's harsh.
Well, sorry, this is what I was going to say. One of the things that he did to me was sent me a clip of Terry Alderton's stand-up, which I watched twice. I watched once myself,
on the
and then I showed on my phone. And I watched it once, and then I showed Angelina because I said, watch this guy. He's just amazing. He was one of the most unique and bizarre, but not gratuitously bizarre comedians I've seen in a long time. I mean, he reminded me of when I first saw Lee Evans years and years and years ago, and I thought, wow, I've never seen anybody like, his delivery and the way that he was.
Yeah, manic,
and maybe
sort of pattern.
Yeah, and maybe Jack D as well too. Jack D had that kind of deadpan. He was unique, and this guy, but like even his material was unique as well. The gags that he did, and very physical comedy involved in it, and all that sort of stuff. And I was expecting something. So I saw all that before I listened to this, and so I was expecting something very different from what I got in the end, and I was kind of let down by this, really, in a way.
Oh.
Because I didn't think it was that funny.
Do you know, I've got the feeling that last week we were saying, laughter as an individual watching or listening to something is not everything. That might sound a bit bizarre for us to say on the Comedy Slab. It's not the measure of all things good. And Yeah, I don't think he's going for laugh after laugh in this show. I think he's pushing, and he's probably been encouraged to push because of the time slot. I didn't actually check it in the end, but there is a time slot Wednesday nights 11 o'clock on Radio 4,
Right.
where, for instance, we've never talked about this in the recording, but your mate Tim Key, for instance, has a sort of very dry, slow, obtuse poetry show, amongst other things. So it's the place to stretch the envelope and to stretch what comedy means, which we like doing on the Slab, to be fair.
Mentioning Tim Key, in actual fact, that was the time slot that All Bar Luke went out at, was the 11 o'clock slot.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and by the way, if you haven't heard that, we have slabbed that in sort of months ago now, isn't it?
Yeah. But when I say it wasn't very funny, I mean, it was I found it very entertaining, and I found it, I mean, obviously he loves audio, and I looked and checked all the voices are his, including the David Attenborough impression. That's him, isn't it? It's all him.
Well, I'm just slightly confused because there's a guy called Johnny Sperling who's credited online at bbc.co.uk. So I don't know where the joins are, but I mean, that in a way tells its own story that it works as a crafted work. So, but there's a couple of voices. I mean, it sounds like a sort of Black Londoner type voice. A rapper interjects, not in that clip we've just heard, but one or two others.
That's him as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is. He's a master of disguise. But I don't know where Johnny Sperling begins and where Terry Alderton ends, or vice versa.
No, and the characters, I mean, like the voices in his head and the bear and all the rest of it, the bear that sounds like Tommy Cooper, which
we'll get to
a bit later on. They all feature in his stand-up as well, don't they?
You already know more than me.
Well, one of the clips I saw of his stand-up, and he was the bear character. He was thinking, what happens if a dancing bear gets rescued? And he said, "Right, you rescued, you can go to the bar now." And he's going, "I can't help it. I just love dancing. Can I carry on dancing?"
Oh, yeah. I did hear about it. Yeah, I didn't.
You've got to go into the wild now. And he's going, "No, I love dancing. I don't know what's the matter with me. I just love it. That's all I live for is dancing." Which is kind of, when you think about dancing bears, it's kind of a black and bleak sort of humour, I suppose. But
well, yes, he's not averse to that.
No, and I tell you, it reminded me of something, and I don't know whether you picked it up or not. But did it remind you, the production, the sketches, the language, the dialogue, all reminded me of something very specific? Did it remind you of anything or not?
Well, not specific. I mean, I'd go anything from an obvious reference point would be Kenny Everett for my generation. Radio genius par excellence, who I had the privilege of working with briefly in TV, just hashtag name drop, or to the other end, sort of absurdist drama like Samuel Beckett, or this past week IR mostly been listening to Tom Stoppard's, because it ties in with something we were slabbing the other day, or the other week, the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which Radio 4's just done a production of that, which is very fine and interesting. Your mate Matt Bainton in the role of whichever one he is, Rosencrantz, I think. But
or if not, he will definitely be in the role of Guildenstern.
Well, yeah, but it was the first time I've heard it. I've had the book on my shelf for decades, to my shame. I actually think I borrowed it off my sister back in the 1980s, and she hasn't asked for it back. She's forgotten I got it. I spoke to her the other day about it. She got no memory of having loaned it, so I might have just nicked it.
What about if I said to you Blue Jam?
Well, yes, so we're in the Chris Morris territory. Yeah, there's certainly something of that. Again, we're going into, I would say, sort of absurdist comedy drama. Yes. Is that fair? And
I kind of got the feeling that it was more absurd. Absurd was a greater goal than comedy was to Terry Alderton. And and I say, I mean, I'm not saying I feel bad saying this because I really like the guy and I really like his material and I like his work. And I kind of wanted, I guess I wanted this to be more like his stand-up, but it seemed to me like I say, being absurd was a higher goal to him, which can often be a little bit like kind of look at me how absurd I am, look how surreal I am. Look, I'm really out there. I'm a wacky guy.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, firstly, I think it comes back to the slots brief. I think I'm going to guess, I'm reverse engineering it. I don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations, but I'm going to guess the producer, and we should credit as he changes screens. The guy I said who's featured, Johnny Sperling, I might be singing. For instance, we hear a song in our third and final clip later, but. Johnny Sperling is also co-producer credited with Sean Kerwin. I know neither of them. And then exec producer is Richard Melvin. And Richard Melvin, just while we're on the credits, gets credit with Johnny Sperling, keep up with this, for additional material. So we've got multi-talented people doing more than one job. And I should say, to finish the thought, it's a Dabster production for BBC Radio 4.
Well, they all work for Dabster. All those people that you mentioned there and Dabster is actually his management company as well. I think they manage him. Should we have another listen to another clip and see if people can get a feel and see? Because I think the next clip that you've chosen has got more of a surreal edge on it, hasn't it? Don't you think?
It certainly has, and I've got to give a little footnote because because it was slightly longer than we give ourselves roughly a minute for these clips. And so I didn't want to overdo it. And I want to leave you wanting more and seeking out Terry Alderton or terryalderton.com. But there's been a setup, hasn't there, of sorts with introducing the idea of a woman called Mrs. Pearlman who can neither see nor hear. So, yes, it is very dark humour. We're in a fairground now, and I think it's particularly enjoyable. Although it's dark, it's enjoyable sound. I think this is one for the headphones. I don't know if you agree with me on this show.
Oh, yeah.
To get that feeling of being on a ride. It would help if you're slightly tipsy as well. But that's optional between you and your confessor, priest, or whatever. But anyway, so we've had the idea of Mrs. Pearlman, and there's something going on with someone being roped into manhandle her. Is that fair? I'm trying to remember how it's set up, really. Yeah. But anyway, it doesn't matter too much because it is so surreal, but that would at least explain the punchline before we come out of this particular clip. So knuckle down and buckle down for the fairground ride to end all fairground rides. Here we go.
Hold tight, riders, hold tight. Scream girls if you want to go faster.
You know how to get them to spin this waltzer faster, don't you?
How?
Oi! Zit face! Spin it!
Oh, no! Louie! What have you done?
Trousers! There's a much bigger problem than trousers.
What? Now the yarmulke's fallen off my shankle.
It's all right. We're slowing down.
Oh, what do you mean? Tell me there a bigger problem. Don't look, Martin. Oh, why? What has happened?
Well, Marty, it's like this. Head, she's lost her head. Mrs. Bowman's lost her head.
Oh, Larry, what does he mean by head? She's lost her head. Mrs. Bowman's lost her head. Well, Marty, it's like he says. Head, she's lost her head. Mrs. Bowman has lost her head.
Because the downside of that is I was singing that for the rest of the day then. Head, that's what she said. Mrs. Bowman's lost her head.
Ow.
I was going to say.
I was going to see her.
Later on in the show then, there's a description of that from another perspective, isn't there?
Well, earlier in the show.
Did you notice that? There was a guy talking about those same events from his perspective.
I certainly know there are perspective shifts on other things.
That was it. It was just this guy starts talking. The one thing that I really struggled with, and you were saying about having headphones, I was listening to it on speakers at one stage, and I had to put headphones on because I couldn't take it all in. I found it a really difficult listen. Now, I don't know if that's because they used a lot of sound. And I thought, Adrian will love this because there's lots of soundscapes in it, and you know the sound.
How well you know me.
The sound production is beautiful. I mean, there's no question about it. But I found it a really difficult listen, and a lot of the writing I found. There was one piece, and I can't remember which one it was now, but I had to replay it about 3 times just to figure out what was going on with it.
Yeah.
Did you find that as well, or is that?
Definitely dense. Yeah. Dense? There's a gag. Actually, while I get into this, that I find some of it's slightly morally dubious. He says at one point the character, whichever character it is, probably on the printed page that he's reading off, because I'm sure it's pretty much scripted, although it might have started out, as we've said in previous slabs, to do with other shows. A lot of things start with ad libre, but then they get nailed down at script conferences and all sorts of exotica. But there's some dubious stuff, I would say, about people with dwarfism, and I'm much happier with that term, starting with the word people rather than just talking about dwarves, which I think is terribly Victorian and discriminatory, I would say. But he does say, one of these characters says, I want to go to the fairground, and then we're into a fairground sequence. So we just heard part of the result of that. It is very dense. You've got to run to keep up, but I quite like that. It might only be 14 minutes long, but you've got to be prepared to invest, I would say, about an hour in it to properly enjoy it, as we get the luxury of enjoying over the week when we slab things and listen to them more than once or watch them more than once.
But it had a texture to it, didn't it? Because there were other parts which were quite easy to absorb. Like there was a running gag of somebody firing a gun, and then he would shout something like.
Did you get the gag about the box? Once he said, "No, not the person with the box," or "It is the person with the box." He wants them to shoot.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything to get. I just thought it was the person holding. No, not him. The person holding the box.
I want to say it's not that twin, the one that looks like him.
It looks like him.
Which twins tend to if they're identical.
What was the first one as well? There was the holding the box was the first one, wasn't it? Yeah. He said no, not that one. The one holding the box.
But he does fixate on dwarfism because there is a reference which I find very, very dark. I know he can use the cover of it's fiction and it's experimental comedy and we're not really shooting a person with dwarfism, but actually the gag is there'll only be 6 left for a panto. And if you listen to the whole show, it's very obvious, I would say, that he's talking about someone with dwarfism. So effectively, you've got a BBC radio show where someone kills a dwarf. Almost for entertainment. I'm well aware that no one actually died in the making of this show, but if you actually listen, well,
I mean, because really, if you think about,
but you wouldn't do it if they were Jewish. You wouldn't say, "No, you've just shot a Jew." You'd never get that past the script conference at the Beeb, would you? And nor should you. I don't think.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know because if you said, you just shot a Welshman, nobody would. An eyelid, would they?
So you found my weak spot.
It suggests that it's all right to shoot Welsh. But, I don't know. I just kind of think there is always somebody that is going to be on the end of a joke, isn't there? And to me, it's
but Richard Herring, for instance, a fine stand-up I've had good reason to enjoy over the years, and he's thrown both feet into podcasting in a big way with his Leicester Square podcast. He says he always wants to punch up and not punch down. And that was the first time I'd heard that expression, although I don't think he claims to have coined it. But it's the idea of, it's all about power, isn't it? And a lot of humour is about
No, I don't think it is. It's all about being funny. I think you want to go away and listen to Tommy Tiernan and tell a joke about being a racist and tell me what you think about that one. It's one of the funniest pieces of comedy I've ever heard in my life. Tommy Tiernan. Who's a fabulous Irish comedian, and he tells I won't ruin it, but he tells this gag, and various people come into the story, and he starts off. I think he's talking to what they call in Ireland a tinker, traveller, gypsy, whatever you want to call it.
I thought you meant a thinker,
little tinker. And they accuse him of being a racist, and he kind of goes on from there. And I don't know. I don't subscribe to this, punching up or punching down and power and all. I don't think it's I think if it's about that, then fine. There's something wrong with the individual, but I don't think it is. I think it's just about because if you go to Africa, and if you go to South Africa, they all tell jokes about Nigerians. So what's that?
Oh, and you go to France, then the butt of the joke is Belgian.
It's Belgian. So, but I mean, where do you stand with that? Like, are South Africans allowed to?
Well, I think that makes my point about power, though, isn't it? It's all right if they're not powerful people because they can't fight back.
Well, I'm saying
at them.
If it's black South Africans, is that any better than white South Africans telling the joke about Nigerians?
But I like these power structures turned on their head. Tell me a joke where, I mean, there is a funny joke I was told, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but essentially it's about a black boy pretending to be white. No, it's the other way round. Oh gosh, I knew this was fatal to get into. If I get this wrong, I'll cause an international incident. But essentially, it reverses the power thing, so it does punch up, and it's very funny.
I've never been to a comedy club.
I think it's a black boy deciding he's white. He's playing a game. He is actually black, but he's deciding to be white. No, I've got that wrong. Anyway, the punchline is, I've only been black for 5 minutes, and already I hate you white people. But the white people he's talking about are his parents, who are black, of course. Anyway,
right.
That could be turned into a joke if only I hadn't told it completely out of order and wrongly.
I just think,
sorry, you were saying.
I was just going to say I've never come out of a comedy club or watched a sitcom and thought, oh well, they were punching down or punching up or whatever. And I kind of watch everything. I'll watch any old rubbish, but I don't watch it for that.
AOR.
I either like it and relate to it or don't. And I don't take it any deeper than that. There's politics in everything, and I kind of think...
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Jimmy Carr, for one, a noted stand-up, I'm sure a lot of our audience will know.
So I don't like Jimmy Carr, but go on, yeah.
I know, I don't particularly like him, but I like the fact he says his favourite sound is a laugh followed by, ooh. And he knows he's got you. I've said this before, if you laugh, then the comedian has won, haven't they? I mean, to state the obvious. And if they've almost tripped you into, and this is where you might say I'm looking too deeply, but actually I like the game going on, which is, I'm going in as I think I'm this kind of liberal and I'm so right on and all of that, and you've made me laugh at a joke, say, about dwarfism or whatever, and then I've gone, ooh, afterwards.
Yeah.
But that, ooh, is a realisation, actually, I'm not as pure as I think I am. I'm not as right on. And I think that's why comedy is much more than just about getting laughs. It's about sort of purging the soul in a way.
Yeah.
It's or holding a mirror up to us. So I do like dissecting it on the comedy slab.
I've never thought I'm pure or right on, and I really worry about people who do.
And to be fair, no one else has of you, Shane.
No one said I'm right. Am I right on?
That's what it's a purging my soul to work with you. I think you're put on this earth to make me realise I'm not as pure as I think.
Play another clip, you rotter.
Yes, it must be time. It's overtime. I'm on time and a half now. Right, okay. Where are we now? It's third and final one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I haven't imagined we played the second one. This is a song. Now, the interesting thing here is the song is completely straight. And there's part of me that wants there to be a little comedic twist to the song. Maybe we'll pick up on this theme. Anyway, the jokes are in the commentary on the song.
Well, things like that, they used to make me cry.
What's he on about?
I don't know. Now I think I probably laugh.
Laugh, let's hope so. It is a comedy show.
I used to hate all of those tearful goodbyes.
Maybe it's a metaphor.
But now I put them all in the past.
No. It's a song about being middle-aged.
Now I'm cynical.
Told you.
Things don't hurt me the way that they used to.
What, was he beaten up as a kid?
Now I'm cynical.
You've already sung that bit.
I can do what I please when I want to.
Why does he keep going on? Shut up and sing the song already.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, that made me think of Lee Evans.
Really?
I don't know. Did you see his big O2 shows that he did?
Oh, not the Queen Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, he does
Gyrations.
He does straight song at the end. He'll do he gets the piano out and plays a song that he's written.
Yeah, that rings a bell. And that's very old school, isn't it? Younger listeners won't know that was the norm, wasn't it, back in the day? Even an impressionist like Mike Yarwood, who you can wikify, who happily is still with us, but not on our screens much at all. I mean, he'd end on "And This Is Me" song.
So, I can't remember who the comedian was who used to take the mickey out of that, and he'd go, and he'd say, "And this is me," and he'd go, "Oh, the scales have fallen from my eyes, Mike. It was you all along, all through the show." He said, "He'd be exactly the same as he was through the entire show." As a kid, he never really got it. But yeah, this idea. I mean, it was the entertainer, wasn't it? Really, you know, the comedian was also an entertainer, so they always used to sing as well at the end. But
well, it was the classic. I'm here all week. If you tried the veal,
yes, we'll be back after the bingo kind of stuff, isn't it? But again, the commentary I didn't find really very, very funny. I didn't think it was. You know, I didn't think it was his standard at all. Really, I don't know. It's curious. Curious having seen his stand up how some of it translates, but like not the jokes of. I mean, he really made me laugh when I saw his stand up. I thought it was just. I'd really like to see him live. Actually, I was just looking to see his tour dates and see where he is because I think he'd be a lot of fun live. I think he really would, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I just did you like it? Did you think that was funny?
I did enjoy it. Yeah, but now you mention it, I wasn't falling about laughing. But I mean, I find his Tommy Cooper stroke bear entertaining. Anyway, and perhaps even if you don't know Tommy Cooper, it's a funny voice and it's enjoyable.
And it fits a bear as well, doesn't it? Really, because I mean, Tommy Cooper's quite a big fella. So it kind of a man. It kind of the voice fits the bear, doesn't it? As well, you can imagine a bear talking like that.
You can, but anything that sort of keeps the memory of dear Tommy alive, I think is a good thing. I once read there's an autobiography by his lover, which I would recommend. Can't remember the name of it. Can't remember her name.
Yes,
but it's intriguing because it's behind the curtain. And the one fact I remember, sorry, this is a massive digression, but since we're on Tommy, and it is the Comedy Slab, what the hell, we're allowed to digress, but I digress, as Ronnie Corbett would say. He used to go around the country, and again, kids today won't believe this. You expect everything, to be piled into a Winnebago, and that will be your roving studio and theatre for the week, or for however long the tour is. He used to go on the train with 14 suitcases full of comedy, mechanics. Yeah. Can you imagine trying to... And he'd have to get the guard in the days when we had a guard on trains. That's when the trains weren't on strike. You can imagine that going around the UK, or probably just England. I doubt whether you could get too far.
No.
With 14 suitcases. I mean, no wonder he needed a lover to help him, because his wife, Dove, that was her nickname at least, wouldn't come on tour with him, which is why he ended up arguably with a mistress. So she may not see it that way.
She was his assistant, wasn't she? She was that was her.
She was everything.
Before.
She was with him when he died.
Yeah,
famous, unfortunate incident.
I don't know if I ever told you there was a one-man show written about Tommy Cooper behind the scenes, where it's like him.
Oh yeah, you did. I know I was around because we met at BBC Radio Derby when you interviewed. Remind me who it was.
Jerome Flynn, it was, bizarrely, because he was famous for being in Soldier, I think, wasn't he, at the time, with
Robson and Jerome
Green.
as well.
Robson and Jerome. But it was really weird because I was interviewing him, and because he was doing Tommy Cooper, he'd started to take on the mannerisms in his everyday life, and I actually pointed it out to him because we chatted in his dressing room at the theatre. And I said, "Did you know that you're actually, He goes, "Yeah." And
thank you very much.
So I'd be interviewing Jerome Flynn, talking to him about his life. Fascinating guy as well. He had a retreat down in Wales that he used to run. That I don't know if he still does.
Gosh. Well, acting retreat.
I'm not sure whether it was, to be honest with you. I think it was just open to anybody. I think if you just wanted it was like meditation and all. I think his wife was into it. Anyway, but I said to him, "Did you?" And he went, "I had no idea." But he like, you know, he was getting ready for that night's performance, and it turning into Tommy Cooper before my very eyes. It was fascinating. Lovely guy, I've got to say. Really nice chap. But yeah, it was and a brilliant performance as well. You know, he was.
I actually saw that show on a different occasion to you, but you know, while I was working on that radio station. Yeah, it was good, and it was a good story they wove around Tommy's story.
Yeah,
and managed to make it a sort of unfold in real time before you as an audience.
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah, it was a good little show.
Anyway, it's got to be that time, hasn't it? Talking about time,
it must be
time. Tick, to dish out the scores on the doors.
Miss Ford. That's already 2 references. What was the first one? It's time. Was that Over the Top? OTT?
It's time. That was Pitkins. That was a kids program from the 1970s
with the puppets.
70s. Hartley Hare and
Pitkins. My name's Hartley Hare.
And I'm Pig. Yeah. I don't know why Pig was a Brummie.
I'm Pig.
I'm Pig and I'm hungry.
Yeah.
But it is time, isn't it? And I think you should go first with the scores, because we mentioned this last week. You do this thing where you find out what I'm dishing out, and then you dish out accordingly to try and.
Well, no, hang on. That's your take on it. I deny all corruption. By okay, I'll go first. But as we found out from you, you're allowed to change your score in midstream anyway, so you're a fine one to talk. Well, you know, it's you. Sorry to hold up the mirror so that you find you're not as pure as you think you are. Right, so I, as usual, have given this no thought whatsoever. It's between 3.5 and 4. If it had to be on the quality of production standards, the quality of the sound definitely gets a 4. I think maybe overall I do have to err on a 3.5. Very interesting, great bit of experimental radio with comedy attached. Yes, not sort of belly laughs, but I don't think it's going for those. But I think it is ambitious, pushing at the darker underbelly of the human psyche. Not to put too fine a point on it. Look at me. Hopefully, Series 3 will get a 4 stars or more out of me, but I'll stick with 3.5.
You're giving it 3.5. I'm going to give it a 2.5.
And you blew meanie.
Simply because I'm a Londoner. Simply because it was the material that was in it, and I don't know whether you did me in by showing me his stand-up, and I'm glad you did in a way.
Oh, because I showed you something too good.
You showed me something of a higher standard, and I kind of expected it to be that. But it wasn't that low of. I mean, I'm making it sound worse than it is, really, but it's not. It was just disappointing because I like the guy, I like his thought processes, I like his characterizations, I like his comedy. I think he's a huge talent. I mean, we haven't mentioned what a bizarre life. He used to be the goalkeeper for Southend United, didn't he? I think he played in the youth team, and then bizarrely he went back for a month. They signed him for a month because they hadn't got a goalkeeper.
After he'd gone into comedy full time.
Yeah, because he'd appeared on this TV show on Sky One, on being in a football team, and they saw him on the telly and said, "Why don't we get him back?" It's just a crazy life he's lived. So all of that.
Well, Gordon Ramsay was famously a goalie as well, wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it does attract a certain A-lister.
I think he used to be quite good at cricket as well, Gordon Ramsay. I seem to remember he because he was in Warwickshire.
I think it was Dennis Compton who did that. Oh no, Dennis Compton was Arthur Smith told me once when I interviewed him. #name drop. Dennis Compton was a cricketer and a top flight footballer.
Right. Well, that's what they used to do. I mean, I remember the Villa goalkeeper when I was a kid, a guy called Jim Coombs, used to play for Villa in the winter, and he'd play for Warwickshire in the summer.
Genius.
I think he was a wicket keeper.
Oh, no, it was a great comedy actress. Oh no, that was Pat Coombs.
Pat Coombs, yeah. So what did you say? 3.5?
3.5. Actually, no, I'm sorry, this is very quick digression. If you had to mark what you'd seen on his YouTube appearances, which people can search Terry Alderton on YouTube, what would you give them?
4
as a star rating. Right.
I thought he was top notch. I really did. I thought he was one of the most creative and inventive and unique. I think that's the thing that I loved about him was I thought, who's he like? He's like nobody.
Yeah.
He's like Terry Alderton. He's he's an individual. I'd have given him a 4, no problem for that material.
Although when it comes to hairstyle, he's like you and me, isn't he? Really,
can't fault the lad.
Pate.
Can't fault the lad. Anyway, by my
Smooth
miscalculations,
skin.
what does that gives him a 6, doesn't it, out of 10? Which is no shabby score, really, when you look at some of the pantheons of comedy that he's sharing it with.
I would have liked it if you'd liked him more, but
I love him. I like him.
To...
It was just. Maybe I need to listen to another episode, but thanks to the wonderful BBC, I can't, can I? So.
Well, as you say, Series 3 is waiting in the wings. I don't know when that's due, but we hope. I don't know what could one advise. Throw more ad libery into the radio show. Try and bring more of his stand-up style. Maybe it's easier said than done, particularly for that slot as well, as we said.
I'd give him a script editor,
right?
Because I think somebody would sit with him and go, "Oh, Terry, you've got to use those are the best bits." I think this is the danger and the downfall of doing it all yourself. Is that you don't get until it goes out to an audience, you don't get that critical viewpoint that somebody says, "Oh, that's not your best material, mate. You should use this. This is your A stuff." Script editor. That's what I think. Anyway,
okay, you volunteering?
You're like he needs my help. Your homework for next week then? What should we going to slab next week? I tell you, talking about help. I want your help with this one because I've been listening to this for pleasure. And I thought actually this is a good one to slab because I don't know how I feel if I had to. I've got to go back and I've got to put my critical head on. I think rather than my enjoyment head. Oh,
you might have to kill your darlings and say goodbye to your rosy tinted view. You never know.
Yeah, you never know, do you? This is another radio comedy. It's more of a traditional sitcom. It stars Nicholas Lyndhurst, who he was in a TV series. You might not have caught it. It was called Only Fools and Horses. It also stars Vicky Pepperdine, who we know from lots of things. In fact, we Dear Joan and Jericho, we slabbed them, didn't we?
And Jericho, yeah. Is she terribly, terribly posh, as you accused her of always being?
Yeah, she's always the same, isn't she, Vicky Pepperdine? But wonderful when whatever she's in. And Tom Goodman-Hill, who was the PC in Ideal, which we also slabbed as well. So great cast. And it's called. Have you caught up with this? It's called My First Planet.
No, you and me.
Okay, well that's your homework. I'm not going to tell you anymore. You're going to have to do your research. I'm going to make it easy. We'll make it Series 1, Episode 1. So we're getting right in at the ground floor, and we'll be able to hear exactly what the premise is. I won't ruin it for you. But My First Planet, Nicholas Lyndhurst, Vicky Pepperdine, Tom Goodman-Hill, amongst others, starring in that radio comedy. That's next week's Comedy Slab.
Super duper. Well, it falls to me to give a mention to our social medias. We are at Comedy Slab on Twitter. Do follow us there, please. And like us likewise on Facebook, where we are likewise. Also, there's too many likes in one sentence, I think, but I like it. That's the way. I like it. We are at Comedy. Thank you, darling. At Comedy Slab on the Book of Face, which is, I think, in the Bible or the Acropolis. No, the Apocrypha. I don't know. It's somewhere. You'll find it on Google.
And you can also catch episodes of the Comedy Slab on Spreaker and Apple Podcasts. Always sounds like a recipe, that does. Apple. Today we're going to make Apple Podcasts.
Yes, please. Yeah, with cinnamon.
With lots of cinnamon in there. You want a nice puff pastry for your Apple Podcast. And one that I always forget to mention, but I got a kick out of looking the other day. We're on Spotify, of course. And all of our back episodes are on Spotify as well. You can catch up with all of those. So in the normal places you catch your podcast, and also on YouTube as well. If you just type in Comedy Slab, that will generally find us in most places. So until next time, thank you very much for being with us. Me, I'm off dancing. I just love dancing. I can't help it. I love dancing.
Aha, aha. And I'm just going to recommend that you recommend us to other people, friends and family. Or if you hate the show, recommend us to some enemies. You never know. No publicity is bad publicity. And how can I go out in a manic Terry Alderton style? I think we should both keep dancing. Aha, aha, aha.